So I've had some fails with this thing. And when you asked if how did I figure it out? The gal that's a mom, she did a triathlon, or she did an Ironman. I was like, listen, I want to know your story. Like, how do you train for an Ironman while being a mom? And her husband also has some medical problems that she needs to attend to, right? And so it was my very first ever remote. I always wanted to do conversations. Like, I like to look at people while I'm talking to them and feed off each other. And I know a lot of other podcasts do, and it's easy to do remote, right? Like, you can get somebody across the country. So I tried it. I was like, listen, Hannah, let's do a remote one. I'll send you a link. It looks really easy to me. And so we did the whole episode, hour and 20 minutes or so, right? And it was an epic fail. What I didn't realize was on her end, she was echoing. And so the people traveling in their car trying to listen to Hannah tell her story about how she trained for an Ironman while being a mom and being sleep deprived was almost unbearable because of the echo. So her story was lost in basically lost in translation. So I failed at this several times. I had a headphones and a microphone, you know, did the old thing where I set up and then I would have a conversation with you. So I'd put the microphone in the middle and hope that both of us would pick up. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But we figured it out. This has been by far this system right here. Our clinical educator does YouTube videos on training. He got me turned on to this. And this has been, I think, the best.
Best quality.
Best quality. So the headphones that you see on TV and the microphones, those are all great. I'm probably never going to get to that level.
Well, and it's cost versus benefit.
Sure. And so I bought a laptop. My wife will, she loves this one. I thought, well, I'm gonna nerd out on this. Anybody that knows me knows that I go pro in everything. Okay? I'm not. This isn't just a hobby. We're gonna do it. I should probably have a laptop so I can get in there and edit all my stuff and put cool sound effects and stuff. Phone, no? Do it all on my phone. Do it all on my phone. So for those listening, I'm with Pastor Jeremy Johnson right now, who's a pastor at Hope Lutheran Church in West Des Moines. Lutheran Church of Hope. Where I've been a member. My wife and I have been a member for 19 years. We're very quiet members. But you, however, celebrity.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
You were in our home on Sunday on YouTube, preaching the word. Every day, everybody knows you in our family. And when I said I was going to come down and sit with you, they're like, how did you score that?
we also walked alongside in a very difficult time in your family's life.
Yes. Which is how we, I've had a very meaningful conversation on the way here about, I don't really know what direction our conversation is going to take today. That scares me a little bit. But we're going to go where God calls us to go. I feel like I've known you a long time, but I don't know you at all. And one of the fears were, I'm going to reach out to Pastor Jeremy and I'm just going to ask him if he wants to sit down with a guy he's never met before and talk on a podcast that is so low rent it's going off his phone about death and dying. And you wrote back, yep, happy to do it. And by the way, you were grateful. You were like, man, thanks for that. But my whole family knows you. We feel like we know you. And I'm sure a lot of people in the church feel like they know you. And maybe you know a lot of people too. But I was like, oh, there's no way this guy remembers me. But here we are. 2 years later.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about, like, you do what you do and you do it not because you want anything out of it, but you feel called to it. And I think for me, I felt called to do what I do, and the size of the church that you are a part of has no bearing on that. You just do it, and you do it because, like, for me, I did it because I felt really called to it, and God got a hold of my life, and for whatever reason, I just felt this call that I wanted to share that, and I wanted to be able to come alongside people. And so I feel like if it were to ever get to a place where somebody were to reach out and say, hey, I'd love to do this, and you'd say, oh, sorry, I'd feel like you'd really be missing it. And I think that's what's turned a lot of people off to the church in general.
It's interesting that you say that, because I have conversations with friends, and I'm not, if you ask, I'll tell you what my beliefs are and what my convictions are and all that kind of stuff. And maybe I'll suggest a few things here and there, but never, preachy. Right. Like, we all grew up. I grew up not really religious, not really spiritual. Went went to Sunday school, but my parents never made me go to church, right? But you always kind of knew.
Yep.
And then high school came around, and you always had that group of kids that went to school early and they were studying the Bible, and you're like, it's kind of
Not
weird.
my thing.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? And then you get too cool for school, and you're like, well, if God created the heaven and earth, then who created God, man?
Yeah.
Like, come on. And then and then you get older, and you're like, well, wait a minute. If I could explain who created God, then that wouldn't make him God,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So at that stage in your life when you're trying to question things and you think you got the aha moment when it comes to Christianity, you're like, well, that's the dumbest question I could ever ask, because if I could explain him,
right,
then he wouldn't be who he is.
Exactly.
And so I just realized that probably, and I've been 20 years in the church. Somebody said that question and I was like, holy crap, that makes so much more sense.
Yep.
How I got inspired to contact you, I think I was listening to a podcast, and I don't remember the fellow's name, but he did the Case for Christ movie.
Oh yeah,
Netflix, right? Yep. And he was on a podcast.
Lee Strobel.
Correct. Yes. Thank you. He was on and I was listening to his podcast, and he was on telling basically his whole story. After I listened to it, I went for a walk, which I do a lot. Come up with some really good ideas, and I was like, "There's some things that I'm just not. I just need a little bit more."
Yeah.
Who can help me do this? And you were the first person I thought of.
It's your first mistake. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what I'm saying, right? And I was like, I wonder if,
yeah,
and we had this talk off microphone, so to speak, because I don't do any video. How many times do we say we should do something and then we just never do it?
Right.
Right. And so I don't know what direction this conversation is going to take. I do have a few notes and some things that I want to ask about. But the crux of it is, in our jobs, we see lots of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But we can explain most of it, right? And a friend of mine had to tell two young boys that his dad was dead the other day, right? Which is no fun for anybody. But if you look at objectively, you can say, well, he's probably had some hypertension he didn't treat. Yeah, it looks like he smoked.
Yeah.
He was a little overweight. These things all add up to catastrophe, basically, and tragedy. But we also see people who do all those things right, who still meet the same end.
Yeah.
And then we see things that we're like, holy crap, how did you survive that? Right? Knowing that the answer is, well, if we can explain it, then he wouldn't be him.
Yeah.
I think on earth, we seek more than that answer. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I don't know that we know outside of objective information how to process when those things happen.
Yep. I think so. There's a scripture passage there's two scripture passages I always go to. One is Deuteronomy 29:29. It says there's the mysterious things of God that we just don't know. And then there are the things that we do know, and we'll hold account to those things. And like you talked about earlier, there is a mystery to the whole thing. And then in 1 Corinthians 13, Paul says, like this side of heaven in our human life, we only can see things partially, as if we're looking through a mirror that's dimly lit. And then on that day, when we're face to face with God, we'll know fully and we'll be fully known. And I always think to myself, like there's all the first things of life that I want to know.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole bunch of things that I want to know. Like I want to know why my brother was 6 feet and I was 5'10". Why he didn't lose his hair early and I did. All of those things. Those are like the really simple and the silly things. But I also want to know, there's a young girl in our church family who had to have a heart transplant, and as a result of it now a kidney transplant. And so she is just fighting for her life, and their family is praying, our church is praying, and it seems from our perspective, why aren't things getting better? And so I think about sometimes it feels as if it's the question of like, well, why do bad things happen to good people? And I think we all can just understand that just bad things happen to people. And that's one of the hardest things. And I think the whole idea of death and dying, the whole idea of loss, is intellectually we know that it's going to happen. Intellectually, every single one of us knows that there is a day when we will take our last breath. But knowing it and experiencing it are two different things. And having to process through that. And, you know, offline, you and I had that conversation where I shared the fact that I have in-laws who were volunteer firefighters. And just they're talking about the same things that you described when they would come upon something where it just seemed to be so not right. Death is never right. It was never a part of God's plan. Like God didn't say, well, I'm going to create human beings so they have a finite period of time. No, God created us with eternity in our hearts. It says that in the book of Ecclesiastes. And because the world is broken, we experience the reality of death. And that thing that we experience transcends that which we intellectually can try to come to terms with, which I think is the most difficult part of it. And all the families that I walk alongside who are, whether they lost a person who is well into their 90s, has lived a good life, just had accomplished so much, or whether some of the hardest ones are children who did nothing wrong,
hands down.
And both of those experiences, people have to say physically goodbye to someone. And it's just, what do you do when you experience that? Where do you turn to? And what is it that you can go to that can give you some sort of sense of peace or some sense of comfort for your heart and for your soul and for the family that's there? And where do you turn? Where do most people turn? I think a lot of people, and I'll shut up here in a minute because I'm talking too long, but I think a lot of people, what they do is they try to escape that. So like, I'm experiencing loss. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to distract myself. I'm going to distract myself by just really pouring into my passions, which are wonderful things. Or I'm going to distract myself by, I'm going to go out and do really destructive things because it's going to turn my brain off, and I don't have to walk through that. Or in my conviction, the harder thing, but the more life-giving thing is to actually look at it, to face it and to say, okay, I'm experiencing loss and that's really hard for me. And who can I have? I've already talked about it. Who do I have that can walk alongside of me? Who's your 3 a.m. person that when everything's hit the fan and you're like, I just need somebody to sit next to me, and they don't need to have answers, because we often give people answers when all they need is our presence.
Two things. I was instructed before I walked in here to let you do most of the talking because I have been known to. So you're not talking too long. You're the focal point of this discussion, is I want you to talk as much as you need to talk about, because I can't explain it the way you're explaining. My 3 a.m. person is probably not going to be here much longer.
Yeah.
Right. And so the conversation being, when we as responders go to things that are tragic, we compartmentalize it.
Yep.
We say, oh, these things led up to this event and this is why this occurred. And we go kind of put our ambulances back together and our fire trucks back together and our helicopters back together. And then we just kind of get ready for the next one. Why can't we do that when it's close to us?
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's the difference, is what makes this situation different than any other situation I've ever seen. Because I have seen this exact thing in other people that my best friend is going through. The exact same thing.
Yeah.
They've been in my helicopter. Okay. Sorry, sucks. It's terrible. I feel bad. In the moment that we're in there, I know what the family's about to go through, because we've seen it before. But I'm going to move on. Good luck. This isn't any different. It's only different in my world and in our world because of the community that we're in, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I'm trying to ask, we have to know why. But on 100 other calls, I know why.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I already know the answer. Why now do we seek it? That there has to be more of an explanation.
Because when we lose somebody that we that we have emotional investment in, there's a vulnerability that gets exposed. And in that vulnerability, I believe that what we want to do is we want to control. Yeah. That if in that vulnerability, it feels really chaotic. And in the chaos, all I want to do, because, and I think maybe some people are better at just being able to be vulnerable and just saying, hey, like, this is hard. But for me, I like to be in control. Yeah. And when I face something that feels out of control, I do all of these things to try to control it. And so the closer that tragedy is to me, the more out of control I feel, and the more out of control I see the people around me. And so now everything starts to feel chaotic. And so I want to control it. And if I can explain it, then it feels less scary. Yeah. Because then 1 + 2 = 3, and 3 + 4 = 7. It's just all of those things all of a sudden. Okay, now there's a reason, and now I don't feel so. And then you throw the fact that you see it happen in somebody that you're close to, in their circle of their family, their friends, and all of a sudden you start to look at your family and friends. You talked about your 3 a.m. person might not be here very much longer. I think about the fact that just this last week we celebrated my dad's 84th birthday, and there's one hand of that's like the most beautiful thing, and I'm not going to complain about anything, because, man, I love the guy more than anything. And I also realize at 84 that he doesn't have a lot of runway left, and that's not me being like doomsday. That's just me being just realistic. Like, yeah, I think physically he's going to make it to at least 90. He's just so physically strong. But if he makes it to 90, how much longer does he have there? And I'm 47, and I would like to have him around until I'm 94 years old, But and so I start to almost mourn the loss of somebody that
before it happens,
because I'm scared, because what is my life going to look like if that person's not a part of it? Yeah, I don't know what that looks like.
Because you think you have a lot of runway left, or you're at least
I feel like it, but right? I don't know.
We don't know either.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it. I always took a little comfort, and I say this with my kids, because you look at your kids and you're like, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah,
because I've seen.
Yeah,
I am not special. I am not exempt from tragedy. I am not in, just because and we go back to the control thing a little bit, because that's been a common theme in these episodes, is what makes me tick.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to find that out, like, through other means, right? Like, I really want to know why I process information the way I do, why I react to certain things, why maybe I be one way on duty and a different way on home, and it all comes down to control. But I know that I'm not in it.
Yeah.
It's a fallacy. That's not true. I'm not in control of anything. So I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, right? And you just look at your kids and you're like, man, I hope that this bad thing I saw the other day does not happen to you.
Yeah.
But I know it would. But I know it could. The probability and the possibility are two different things. But I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of runway left.
Yep.
But I don't really know. And so I always find comfort in knowing that their story is already written, right? Like, it's going to turn out the way it's supposed to turn out. And I'm going to let that happen.
Yeah.
We're going to get faced with some decisions, and it's going to be the choose your own ending book. You can go one way, and this is where it's going to lead to, or you can go this way, and this is where it's going to lead to them. But either way, all of our stories are written.
Yep.
I just need to sit back and let it manifest, right? But we wake up every day expecting a certain length of that day. We have big plans. We're going to go do this, this, and this. I'm going to meet up with my wife maybe here later because she took the day off.
Yeah.
But I might not make it. It sounds corny, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To sit here and say that, because I really don't know that I will make it.
Right.
I assume I will. Like, how do we go about things knowing that everything in front of us is out of our control? If you and I have to have control, because we do as our personality on earth, how do we navigate that?
I don't know, but here's what I try to do. And I think for me, that's one of the things that when, and you talk about sounding corny, and I'm the pastor, and of course he's going to say this, but it's actually true for me. that when I realized how much God loved me, even though I'd screwed up so much. Like, I'm not one of those people who went into ministry because I was, yes, my dad was a pastor, but I kind of desperately spent a lot of years of my life not wanting to be that. And so, I went to grade school, middle school, high school. I went to college. I wanted to coach baseball, so I went into teaching, and then in that process, I got to a point in my life where I was like, this isn't it. And then I had a lot of issues personally, just understanding that. And I think for me, insecurity has always been a big thing, which I think is pretty ironic, and from the standpoint that I get up and stand and talk in front of a lot of people. But I think by nature, I'm an introvert. I'm a little bit insecure, and in that, I never felt like I was enough. And so I did a whole lot of things to try to feel like I was enough. And because of that, you kind of just hit some of those dead ends. And when I'd hit one of those dead ends, it was at that point where the love that God had for me became real. And I realized that even though there were times where I didn't love myself that much, that God still loved me. And so at that point, all of a sudden, I started to investigate it a little bit more. And when I investigated it more, I started to realize, and I'm still trying to realize it, what a gift life is. Like, what a gift today is. And the fact that I have breath in my lungs, and there are people in this world that I get to have, the fact that I get to sit here with you and have a conversation, what an extraordinary gift. And I think when we start to live the what if this happens tomorrow game, we rob the beauty of today. The fact that you get to meet up with your wife later today because she took the day off, what a gift. Mm-hmm. That's the fact that, we have 2 kids and they're teenagers. And so that's hard, but what a gift. And I think about the fact that I'll meet with some other people today and do these things. And if I can, it's Psalm 46, it says, be still. Like, sometimes we need to be still and just rest and realize, I don't know what tomorrow holds. And I pray to God that it holds the goodness that today does. But I'm just gonna trust that this gift of today is pretty extraordinary. And I'll tackle tomorrow's troubles tomorrow. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to plan.
Sure.
I mean, to not plan is, I think that's just foolish and silly. Like, I'm going to plan, I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to work out, and I'm going to try to eat as healthily as I can. And I'm going to take care of my body because I want to live as long as possible.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes people say, well, if you know Jesus and you have faith, it doesn't matter if I die or not. It's like, no, God gave you this gift of life. So to say, I don't care if I live or not, what about the people around you that love you? What about the impact that God can have through you? And so it's that both and. Like, I know that someday I'm going to take my last breath. And so I'm going to take today as a gift, but I'm going to maximize today as much as I can. I'm not going to waste it.
There's so much there. And I can tell you how God works. I wrote some Bible verses down.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to share with you how this works. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I'm God.
Oh, wow.
One of my favorites. Because in the middle of all that, you can just take a minute and be like, whether you're anxious or out of control, like we get, one of my favorites. I go back to Jameis Winston. I don't know if you ever saw that pregame interview where he did one day when it was snowing. And he's like, you know what? God blessed me to play in the snow. And like, he was so like in the moment, like, hey, how do you feel about today's game with the elements? He's like, it's a blessing. I'm going to get to do this.
Yep.
And I listen to you say that. And how often do we I sometimes kind of get down in my job. Like, I kind of get, my resiliency kind of goes away sometimes. And I'm like, how much more of this, whether it's tragedy or, like, I wouldn't say some sort of like capitalistic control over where I get to go and how I get to get there and, what we do, and taking away from it that I get to help people.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's hard to stay in that lane.
Right.
You find that true with a lot of people?
I find that true with everybody. And I think it's that it realizing our limits? Because I think for me, if I only give myself permission to say today is a gift and it's going to be the greatest day ever, I don't acknowledge the difficulty and the reality of my humanity, right? Like when our son was at the Band-Aid age, every kid has that Band-Aid age, like where it's just like they think the coolest thing in the world is put a Band-Aid on. Yes. Well, one day, it was in the middle of the summer, my in-laws built a sandbox in our backyard, which I thought that was their way to I mean, I love my in-laws, but that was their way to punish me because in the summer, sand comes in the house.
Exactly correct.
It's just miserable. Like I hated the sandbox. But he was he actually got a pretty significant cut on his arm, and so we put one of those bigger Band-Aids on it, and he was outside playing in the sandbox. And when he came inside, the Band-Aid had been on for over a couple of days. So I looked at him. I'm like, "Hey, we got to take that Band-Aid off so that we can clean that up and get a new one on." He said, "Dad, if you take the Band-Aid off, my cut's never going to heal." And I said to him, "I'm like, hey, big guy, the only thing that's going to heal that cut is if you give it some air. Band-Aid's just covering it up to protect it while it starts to heal. But at some point, we got to give that thing some air so that it actually can heal." And I think if we just kind of put the Band-Aid on and say, well, today is a gift and I'm just going to be blessed, I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm just going to pretend like there's no elements in my life that would take life from me, I think to me that feels like a Band-Aid approach. But when we can, as you just said, to say, today is kind of a down day for me. It's a difficult day for me for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's because I experienced a tragedy, or maybe it's just because I woke up and my thoughts are racing, or maybe it's like I woke up and I'm like, I don't know why I feel like today sucks, but it kind of feels like it does. I think to be still gives you permission to say, here's where I am today. Here's where I am today. And I'm not going to try to reason. I'm not going to rationalize. Now, if I have 3 bad days in a row, I'm going to start to say, hey, am I taking on too much? There feels like my tank is empty and maybe I'm not filling it up the right way. But to me, for me, the beauty of faith isn't to pretend that all my experience all the time are good. For me to have faith gives me the permission to say, God, this doesn't feel very great right now. I know today is a day that I should rejoice and be glad in it, but I'm having trouble finding that. And all throughout Scripture, there's just all of these times in which the people that we read about and the people who are sharing their experiences talk about the difficulty of the day. And there's a huge segment of the book of Psalms that are lament Psalms, where written by people who on the outside looking in would have been the greatest people in the world. And you're like, how could they ever complain about anything? And these people are saying, God, how long are you going to let me suffer? Why does it feel like the enemies, and whatever the enemy might be, it might be physical, it might be emotional, it might be relational. Why does it feel like my enemies are trampling all over me? Why, God, do I call to you and you don't listen to me? And for me to be still and to find joy in today, it starts with being honest of where I am. Do I do that perfectly? Absolutely not. Ask my family, but that's what I try to do, is just, we try to do that with our kids. Like, hey, it looks like something's going on. What's up? Like, we try as much as we can as a family to live with one another completely transparently. Like, hey, if something's going wrong, let us know, because you're at an age where this might be the first time that's happened to you. We're 30 years older than you. We've probably had it happen a time or two. So let us walk alongside it. And that again comes to the importance of relationships. You said earlier, we don't know each other that well, but there's been a couple encounters that we've had that have drawn us together, that in that I know, just because of those short experiences, if something were happening, I know that you're somebody I could reach out to and say, hey man, can you help? And I think we need to have all of that in our lives. And I think community is so incredibly important. I tell people at church all the time, sometimes you don't need to be in church for your sake. Sometimes you need to be in church for the sake of the person who's sitting next to you. That you might be the only person that you might be the only hello that they might get in the entire week. And I think we all have the opportunity to breathe life into the people around us because of who God created us to be. And now we're getting way off the whole topic of death and dying, but I think it gets more to purpose, that when we can live life on purpose, it allows us to walk through those difficult seasons with a little bit more grace, maybe.
But it sounds like you're getting, I'm already just, without a script and knowing where this conversation was going to go, it's going in the right spot. Like this is hitting, right? But it almost like you give us permission. He gives us permission to have a bad day, right? And so I don't know that in our profession, and I mean first responders, so police officers, dispatchers, firefighters, EMS, whatever, we don't get a lot of permission to have a bad day, or at least we don't feel like we get permission to have a bad day. I think when and I've been guilty of this. I'm not really interested at 2 a.m. when it's 5 degrees to get in that helicopter and go somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Other times I'm like, hey, cool. This is what I get to do. Yeah. Right. But we don't get permission, because what we get kind of thrown back at us, maybe, well, this is your job, man. This is what you signed up to do. Yeah, I'm on your team. You're right. I'm here to help. But man, sometimes it feels like it's just not about helping people. Like there's some days when, because we're governed, we're ran, everybody's got a boss, like everybody's got, motives and intention. And sometimes it gets away from the simplicity of just helping somebody. Yeah. And so I don't think that we in this job get a lot of permission sometimes to say, you know what? I just don't, I'm going to go, I'm going to go do my job. But we do that a lot where it's mechanical. It's, hi, I'm Jason. What can I do for you? I'm here to help. And then we kind of go on about it without actually putting some intention behind it. Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense. And I think first responders, fire department people, police department people, dispatchers, they're one of the things that's so amazing about people in that community. I would put I think about emergency room, people who work in emergency rooms, like just people. There is the reality that I think people assume that, well, that's what they do. They just love it. And they don't always have the ability to see. You don't get a lot of thank yous.
No.
Especially, you might get a thank you when there's, you're responding to something and it's tragic, and all of a sudden, miraculously, things go extraordinarily well. And so then that gets the publicity and everyone's like, oh, a hero walking among us. You could say this more than I could ever say this, but it's the one where the heroic success doesn't happen, that's when you need the thank you more than any other time.
Oh.
And I think that people who work in the line of work that you've obviously, everybody who works in it, one, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it because you felt called. And sometimes it's easy to doubt that call because of the difficulties that exist in it. And because you don't, you have the difficulties that exist in it, and you question the call. And then when you don't get you feel like it's unseen. Like it's Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes. I talked about it this past weekend, but sun comes up, sun goes down. Generations come, generation goes. What on earth ever changes? You get call after call after call after call. And it's like, what's the meaning in all of this? And, I don't think as a culture, I don't feel like we're as expressive in our thankfulness as much as we could be.
Sure.
And I think, I think in my role, one of the things that I think about in my role is I get a lot of maybe undue thank you. I mean, I just get thank you a lot because it's very public. And, my wife and I will talk about, I'll say to her, like, I wonder if our mail carrier gets the same kind of thank yous. I wonder if the person who does trash and recycling I wonder if they get thank yous. Because unfortunately,
crossing guards.
Absolutely.
I make my daughter tell the crossing guard every day. Tell her thank you.
Yep. So I'm type 1 diabetic. And So I have an insulin pump. And so you have to talk to customer service. And when you talk to customer service, I think people who work in customer service, and I'm sure dispatchers would get this, they don't get a lot of praise, but they get a lot of people's anger.
Sure.
And so like for me, every single one of those calls, it's like, thank you so much for giving me I could just be a number for you, but you've treated me like a human being. Can I treat you like a human being back? Because I think also we live in a culture that tends to slant towards being entitled.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, you're answering the phone for my Medtronic call. You should treat me the way I want you to treat me, rather than saying, hey, thank you for helping me.
I see this in the ER all the time. It almost feels like their chosen profession gives people permission to treat them poorly.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, listen, this is what you do.
Yep.
Like, so you tend to my need right now because I'm the most important person in this whole 30-bed ER. So please go ahead and treat me accordingly. And then I'm just not going to. So unfortunately, we do see that a lot. You mentioned last week's sermon. So you guys are doing, or well, I should say I'm part of the church. Yeah. 52 questions in 2025.
Yep.
You're going to get this question. This is going to come up.
Yep.
Why do bad things happen to good people?
Yep.
I can see it. I don't know when it's coming.
Yeah.
I just assume it's coming.
Yep.
Right. We watched at home on YouTube. We watched you give the sermon. I typed these notes up last week.
Yeah. So before the sermon.
Yeah. Isaiah 6:8.
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah. It's really crazy.
Does this work for us as first responders? Then I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send and who will go for us? And I said, here I am, send me.
Yeah.
Does that work for us?
Absolutely it does. I believe in vocation versus occupation. So occupation means, what's your occupation? It means I sit in a place and I kind of like, I do my piece in the assembly line of whatever career it is that I do. And I think that we all occupy different places in life. But what that Isaiah 6:8 is that's a calling. And I can tell you as certainly as anything else that I couldn't do what you do. I just couldn't. It's not who I am. When we do trainings here as a staff, like what happens in this crisis and that crisis, one of the things I talk about is, are you a person who flees? Are you a person who fights? Are you a person, like, you need to understand what is it inside of yourself. And I think people who willingly say, you know what, I think we all are called to help people. And the way we help people, the way we love people, that's, when God created the first human beings, their job was to love God and to love each other. And that word for love literally meant serve. And so we're to love God and then serve one another. And so you can serve one another in many ways. And when you can find out how God's called you to serve, first responders being an incredible way to do that, you start to see that it's not me just responding to a call. It says God sent me to help a person experience life, because they're experiencing the loss of life, whether it be physical, emotional, relational. Can't imagine the different scenarios you walk into on just any given shift. That is responding to the call that God's placed on your life. And when we start to see that, I think that too often we separate that which we think is sacred from that which we think is secular. So sacred meaning the holy things of God, and secular meaning all the other things that are a part of our life. When we can see the whole world as being sacred, we can see our place in it, and that what I'm doing is actually incredibly holy, because you're coming to a place where somebody is in need. The word for love, which I love this, the word for love in the New Testament, the word that means God, God's love in the Greek of the New Testament is agape, means love, means God's love. But if you want to get to an explanation that has handles to it, it means charitable. What does a charity do? It gives what it has to the ones who don't have. And so you think about, like, when you're responding to a call, you're giving what you have to the one who has a need, who doesn't have. And in that way, you're loving the way that God loves. And it's extraordinarily holy. And it's literally breathing life into the world around you. And when any of us can start, I think about grade school, middle school, and high school teachers right now, especially in the public school system, where they're just, I mean, my goodness, how difficult when there's so many voices on so many different sides and everyone's kind of telling them that they're not doing it right. And they're doing the best they can to love the kids in front of them. Sometimes loving them means telling those kids no. And sometimes as parents, we need to say, them saying no to our kids is actually them loving our kids. So rather than get mad at the teachers, let's support the teachers and love the teachers for loving our kids. You know, I think it's a call. It's loving the world around us the way that God created us. And you guys are on the front lines of all of that.
My wife's 20 plus years in teaching.
Yeah.
Public school. And, you know, when she has a bad day, it's hard for me not to go back and be like, don't you love this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, isn't,
Yep.
And I failed to stop and go, well, wait a minute. I just felt the same way about my job. Don't I love my job?
Yep.
I do. Very much so. Not every day. But I didn't realize that there was permission to be that way. Right.
Yeah.
Like, because anytime you show weakness in our job with that, sounds like you're burnt out, buddy.
Yeah.
Time to find another job. You better go do something else, you know, because you clearly don't like doing this anymore. I don't know that that's true. I think in the moment, maybe not right now, no. But overall, like, we've all seen it.
Yep.
There are people in our profession that are burnt out.
Yep.
And they have nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. And we see that, and understandably so. But they don't really have anywhere to go. This is all they've known. This is all they've done. But to have almost permission to be like, listen, it's okay to have a bad day.
Yeah.
Like, you can do it. Those bad days seem to be closer together than they used to be.
Yeah.
But I often wonder, like, how much outside. So we'll circle. Malcolm he's going to turn, I think, 42. My best friend Malcolm is going to turn 42 on Sunday. And he's losing his battle. It's inevitable. Thank God it's probably going to he's going to get to his birthday. Like,
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Thank God for that. I have plans to see him on Monday, obviously. And that, thank God for that too. But he's given his last 20 years to helping others, right? He's done what seems to be everything right. Not his teens and 20s don't count.
Right.
Right. None of ours do.
No.
I don't think our 20s count for anybody. Mulligans. He said to me, we're going to circle back once to your philosophy, which all of ours are, is that I know that I'm going someday, but I'm going to make today the best day possible.
Yeah.
So I'm going to eat right, work out, whatever. And how many times do we hear, well, I'm going to die anyway, so I'm going to eat the cake and drink the beer and do the things and whatever. And I'm like, okay, I don't think it works that way. He was one of these guys. He is one of these guys where his oncologist said, hey, listen, you're not going to win. Eat the cake.
Yeah.
Drink the beer. Live your life. You know what he said? No thanks.
Huh.
I'm going to do what I need to do to make every day I got left the best day. And I'm going to do a bunch of stuff that you're telling me not to do because I know it's futile, but it may get me 4 more days of good health.
Yeah.
It may not give me 4 more days on the back end of my expectancy, but it might be the difference between 4 better days at home and 8 really bad days in a hospital.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So the theory that we're all going to just let her rip, just drive 100 miles an hour because you're going to go anyway. Like, I've never really bought into that. And then you spoke about your dad being 84. Malcolm and I have had several talks about mortality. And I want to ask you, coming up, if you see a commonality in people that you sit with that are dying and people that you are around with at funerals, on what, if there's some sort of common denominator. And so we were having a conversation and I said, well, listen, man, I don't know that at 42 or 41, we're supposed to have this conversation about mortality. And he looked at me and he goes, why not? I go, I don't know. It just seems like we have a lot of runway left. He's like, some people live to 84, man. Some people live to 42. He goes, I'm one of those people that's going to live to 42. Very nonchalant about it. Very accepting of it. Now, he's a man of Christ. So I'm sure that had something to do with it. But I never thought of that. Because tragedies always happen to other people. Right? People always drop dead that we have no affiliation with. But we see it all the time. We read about it. I ever since my dad passed, the celebration of life comes to my phone. I look at every one of them. I never looked at any of them before my dad died. Now, why did I change? I don't know. I'm interested. I want to see how youthful you look. I want to wonder, man, this person looks real healthy. I wonder what tragedy this family experienced to get through that. I have no solution. I have no resolution. I can't offer anything, but I'm interested. I find that strange. And a new behavior spawned by this presumed tragedy that I'm about to experience. Does that make sense? So when you sit with people, is there some sort of common regret, common theme, common?
I find the biggest, it's interesting that you asked that. I find one of the biggest, when people are in the process, we're all in the process of dying.
Hands down, I agree.
But when you're when I'm with somebody who's in that, especially when they're dying young, when they're in those final months, weeks, days, what I find most often, and I'm not an expert, but I've been with a lot of people.
Makes you an expert.
It's interesting what I find with the person who's passing away, the regret I don't hear is not to say that they don't lament it, but the biggest regret isn't, like Malcolm said, some are 42, some are 84. That the biggest regret is that why isn't mine longer? Where I find the biggest regret is I have these relationships that aren't tied up, and I want to be able to connect with this person, tell this person I'm sorry, tell this person I love them. I want to make sure that this person knows how valuable they are. I want to make sure that my family is going to be taken care of. I want to make sure. So there's this interesting thing that I find, and I talked to my wife about it, because rather than looking internal with regret, they look external with love, which I find again, I'm speaking in broad brushstrokes. And so if that's not somebody's experience that is listening to this right now, and that feels very offensive, I apologize. That's not my intent.
This whole show is anecdotal. I'm not an expert either. But I've been doing this for 20 years. You've been doing this a long time. Makes you an expert.
So I find that, so there's a couple that I meet with weekly, and they're phenomenal, and they've given so much life to me, and he's battling cancer right now. And so we get together, and whenever we get together, they come with their list of questions, and it's just, I can tell you the most amazing thing that happens, and I've told them this, I feel like they're giving me more life than I'm giving them hope. And it's the most beautiful, and it's the most amazing thing ever, because they come with their questions. They come with their questions of faith. Like one of the questions one time is, so we love each other. We've been married for, this many years. And are we going to be married? How are we going to recognize each other in heaven? So they come with questions like that. And I start to understand the wisdom that they're giving me on, my goodness, physically, she's going to lose her husband, and their children are going to lose their dad, physically, that you've experienced. And they're giving me the opportunity to love those people in my own life. And and when I say that, it almost feels selfish.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you could probably speak to this as well, is sometimes it helps to reshape your perspective. When I'm with somebody who's, this was years ago, but somebody who just lost a child because they completed suicide.
Mm.
And, so I'm sitting with that family, and just the wake and the devastation and the grief and the loss and the questions and all of that stuff. And then I go home and I see my kids. They still need to do what we ask them to do. That's responsibility. That's an important thing. But whether or not they score a bunch of points in their game really seems quite insignificant at that point.
Sure.
And, I'm sure what you've said about Malcolm is, it sounds like somebody who's just absolutely cherishing life. And you get to cherish it with him. And there's also I always think to myself, do I want a long on-ramp to the end of my life, or do I want a short one? People always say, if you could know the day that it is that you're going to die, would you want to know it? And some people are like, yeah, because then I could make sure I tied up all the loose ends before. And other people are like, no, because then it would change the way that I lived until that. And it's like, when you're with somebody who doesn't know the exact day, because none of us do, and we still pray for miracles, but they know that it's shorter rather than longer, you start to look at your own life a little bit differently.
When Malcolm got the news, he shared with me that the cancer was back for good this time. So he's had 2 brain surgeries. It came back. I said, well, the golden goose question here is obviously that everybody's going to ask you, how much time you got?
Yeah.
He goes, I don't know. I go, do you want to know? He goes, I don't think so. So we often wonder if do you want to live? Him and I have talked about this a lot because we're big into longevity, lifespan. Like, do you want to live 80 really good years, or do you want to live 90 years with the last 10 years being kind of really bad? Like, we've said this about terminal illness. Do you want to live 2 really good weeks at your house or 4 really crappy weeks in a hospital?
Yeah.
Right. Like, it makes a difference in how you do things. But if he said he didn't want to know, and I was like, okay, well, cool. We get off the conversation, and I'm like, listen, to myself, this is my inner monologue speaking. I don't know how much I'm going to lose a best friend, sure, but Sheena's going to lose a husband.
Yep.
I was in their wedding. It was great. 3 kids are going to lose a dad. Malcolm had a unique relationship, I think, with everybody. So I'm not special.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but I think he thought if he knew the day, like, he wouldn't, there's nothing he can, if we know the day and we don't want to know the day, it forces us to be, well, if I know I only got a month left, I better do these things.
Yeah.
Why aren't we just doing these things?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, and so you talked a second ago about, like, it helps us change our perspective. Well, that's like eating less food every day. It's a habit you have to build, right? Like, you can't just wake up one day because of some existential something and say, today's the day I change my outlook. And then think you're going to continue that every day after that, right? It's like building it's like going on a walk every day.
Yeah.
So if you miss a day, then you're going to miss 2 days, and you're going to miss 3 days.
Yep.
And so you have to be cautious about that.
Yeah.
I think that every day, like, today's going to be the day that I get into the Bible and I try to find something that I don't, which is the whole book really, that I don't really know anything about. But then the day just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yep.
we talked about this before, like, how many times do we say we're going to do something and we never do it? Reach out to that person you haven't talked to in 3 or 4 years. Hey man, how you doing? I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that I hope you're doing well. Right. Like, and he said in some of those same conversations, hey, listen, man, I've had a good life. I said, really? You're 42. It's only half over.
Yeah.
Or half gone. Yeah, but it's pretty good. Maybe not my 20s, he said, but from 30 on, it's pretty good. And it was almost like the acceptance from somebody who's 42 or 41. Right. I don't really know his exact age. I know his birthday's Sunday. Was just, I'm 49. I'm going to be 50 this year, which is not a big deal to me. I know for some it's huge. To me, it's not a big deal. I used to think I wanted to live till I was 100, but I don't anymore because that's going to come with a cost.
Yeah.
That cost is, out of 4 kids, I'm probably going to bury 2 of them.
Yeah.
Statistically.
Yep.
I'm not interested. I'll probably have to bury my wife if I live to 100. I'm not interested. So the age-old question of, it's better for everybody else if I go first. It's not. It's better for me if I go first.
Yep.
Because then I don't have to deal with the pain of somebody else going.
Yep.
So it's just an interesting.
And I think that death can be peaceful, but death is never a good thing. And the reason I mean that, and I really have been, I think there's certain themes that come up from time to time for me. And the thing that keeps coming up for me lately is this reminder that death wasn't a part of God's plan. And so death only came in because there was a break there was a break in creation. And so death was so much not a part of God's plan that he sent his son Jesus to give his own life as a sacrifice for that. And so I think that this reality of the pain and the loss experienced when we physically lose someone is absolutely real. And that, like you said, like, well, I want to go first, not for their sake, but for my sake. I think that it also shows the absolute beauty and power of relationships. The Mother Teresa was asked once upon a time, she was asked, so she spends her life devoted to serving the poorest of the poor. And she was asked in an interview one time, what was the poorest place that she'd ever been to? And without even thinking about it, she said the United States of America. The reporter thought for sure she was mistaken. Like maybe she didn't understand the question. She said, no, what's the poorest place you've ever been to? And she said that wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in relationships. And I think that's what makes death hard, is because the currency of relationship, when we're really rich in those places, when we lose that, there's a really felt loss. And what Malcolm said is, I've lived a good life, sounds to me when he said he's unique. And a lot of people could say how important he is to them and how important they feel to him. Sounds to me that somebody's extraordinarily wealthy in relationships. And I'm sure you guys have gone into, anybody who's a first responder who's listening to this has gone into a situation where somebody is lost, and it's a tragedy and that person is all alone. And sure, the crowd of people around might not be weeping for the loss of that person, but there's a sadness because that person didn't have anybody around them. And I think about that culture and that currency of relationship of, I have something to give no matter how much money I have in my bank account. And that's something I have to give is love to the world around me. And who are the people who need to be loved right now? And we tell our kids all the time, and do they do it? No. Do they do it perfectly? No. But I know that they've worked at it. Is who can you find? We don't say it every day, but who can you find that needs to have a friend? Doesn't mean you're going to become best friends with them, but can you be the person in your group that's going to go and come alongside somebody that you see that's all alone? And not in a way that you make that person feel like they're an object, but you do it in a way that's natural. You do that in a way that just seems normal, because the experience and the tragedy of loss it's because of the relationship, and shows how important relationship and how valuable they are. And so how can we give relationship to those people who don't? And that's taking this on a tangent that we probably didn't imagine it was going to go on. And that probably wasn't in your notes, and it wasn't in my head.
This conversation is going exactly where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Remember, I had no idea where this was going to go. tombstone, that guy asked Doc Holliday, he says, "Hey man, why are you doing this?" And he says, "Well, Wyatt Earp is my friend."
Yeah.
Guy goes, "Hell man, I got lots of friends." Doc Holliday said, "I don't," because it was important to him.
Yeah.
It was a relationship.
Yeah.
This is gonna listen, man. I can't any describe how happy I am with the conversation.
We'll
Like,
do
this is
part
going
two
well.
at some point.
Yes. I do want to ask one thing. I have a friend of mine whose daughter was born with special needs, and extensively, and she's getting to the age, the daughter, where she's wondering why her friends get to do things that she doesn't.
Yeah.
So she was born with spina bifida. She's wheelchair bound. She's a great girl. Parents are great people.
Yeah.
Catholic, I think. Which they're not perfect, but it's okay. That was a joke. But daughter's getting to the age where she's starting to question, why am I not able to do the things that I'm doing? And I think mom is a little lost of how to reassure or how to explain it.
Yeah.
Any advice to anybody that's experiencing that? I know that we say in the church all the time, God made no mistakes.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I throw that in my kids' face every now and then. I was like, hey, he had to screw this up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise you would be listening to
Yeah,
me
right,
now,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like, but just in the tone, I can tell that maybe she's just a little lost.
Yep.
And how to explain to her daughter that she is made perfect. But it's real hard for a 10 or 11, 12-year-old
my goodness,
girl to understand that.
And to try to, I think sometimes we want to give a really flippant, like easy answer, like, well, and yes, absolutely, she's created perfectly. But we all have different abilities. And so there's a young man in our church. His name is Corey. Corey has special needs. When Corey was born, they told his parents that, he should probably be put in a home. He was never going to be able to talk. And they just said, no, we're just going to raise Corey. And by the time Corey got to be a senior in high school at Valley High School, he was the homecoming king. Corey works at Hy-Vee, and anytime you walk into Hy-Vee, he has the ability to remember every single person's name. So like when I walk into Hy-Vee, I can't get 2 steps into that Hy-Vee and he'll yell out, Jeremy Johnson, when are you preaching next, Jeremy Johnson? And we have this conversation across 18 aisles of a grocery store, and everybody is a part of it. And so one of the things that I love about, I've been so inspired by Corey and by Corey's brother and Corey's parents, is they've been able to see what an extraordinary gift he has that they don't have. Because Corey has the ability to only see beauty in people. He doesn't see, and so that's Corey's story. This young girl's story, she has her own story, but I think for me sometimes, and this is really easy for me to say, so I'm sorry, but for me sometimes it's easy to see the things that I'm not able to do, which take away from the ability to see the extraordinary abilities that I do have.
True.
And so her life has limits, and that's really unfortunate. But the abilities that she has, because God created her perfectly, are limitless. And I think the challenge for all of us is to find out, God, within the limits that I have as a human being, where have you called me where those limits they don't restrain me at all? And I think with anybody who's facing something that's beyond quote unquote explanation, it's helping to rediscover how meaningful all of our lives truly are. And that your life isn't determined by the things you do. Your life is determined by who you are. And this young girl, there will never be another her. And the world without her is at a deficit. And the world without Malcolm is at a deficit. The world without Jason is at a deficit. The world without Jeremy is at a deficit. And so when we can remind each other, when we feel like we're stuck for whatever reason, how valuable, like I think, again, it goes back to community. How can I help remind the people around me who are facing something? How can I remind them how meaningful they are and how much the world would be missing without them? And that becomes the opportunity to see, like, I have a unique imprint on this world and nobody else will impact it the way that. And I think about not just young people who have, things like spinal bifida, but I think young people in general, they look to their phones to find significance, when in reality, their impact on the world is going to be far greater than that. And we need, like, people like your wife who are teaching students, have this hard task of reminding them, like, you're more than what you see on a phone. You're more than the amount of likes you get. You're more than that. You are uniquely you. So just go change the world with who you are, because you can. Like, you absolutely can. And I think that's the here I am, send me. I don't really know what I'm good at, God, but I trust that you got something for me. And so whatever, and the send me is just a, 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 a shift in perspective, that the people that I find myself in front of, around right now, are the people that God's called me to love. However he's called me to love them, whether that's literally breathing life back into their bodies, or whether that's just saying, hey, it's good to see you, or that's being able to sit in this last season of their life, when they've heard the word of this, you're not going to beat cancer this time. Like, the here I am, send me isn't I need to just magically discover that unique place where God is sending me. And if I don't get it right, then I'm not going to get it right. But it's saying, well, here I am right now. Give me eyes to see how you sent me here. And maybe that's.
Nah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. But we're gonna wrap this up. Unfortunately, I can sit down and talk to you all day. Will you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Will you pray?
Yeah, I'd love to. God, I thank you for today. I thank you for the gift that today is. God, I thank you for giving us the gifts of relationships. God, I thank you for every single person that is listening to this right now, will listen to this. God, I pray for every person who will never listen to this. God, I pray for all of us as we go through a life that doesn't always go the way that we want it to. But God, in the middle of all of that, God, I ask that you would allow us to open our hearts and mind to experience the fact that you love us exactly where we are, even when we don't really know if we agree with that or accept it. God, I ask that you give us peace and comfort. God, I ask that you would allow us to know how deeply you love us, and that there is nothing in all of creation, not our behaviors, not other people's behaviors, that could ever separate us from your love that you gave to us through your son, Jesus. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, work hard, be kind.
Hey guys, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Shift Change Podcast. I need to ask if you would leave a rating. I think that it helps people who are new to the podcast find it quicker. It doesn't do me any good, but it does help other people that are looking for the Shift Change Podcast on Spotify or Apple. It just comes up quicker the more ratings that you give it. I don't, whether you give it a 2 or a 5, it doesn't make a difference. It just helps other people. If you need to get a hold of me, contact me via my email, the show email, which is talkshiftchange@gmail.com. Or you can message me on Instagram at talk.shiftchange. Excuse me, at talk.shiftchange on Instagram. As always, thanks for listening. I could not have imagined how well this podcast has been received. So, as always, I appreciate it. Work hard, be kind.